Isaac, how are you?
Hi, Julia. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good too, thank you. Can you please introduce yourself and tell me where you're from?
Yeah, so I'm Isaac Castellanos, and I am in Arizona in the US.
Oh, nice. Can you please describe your art for people who haven't seen it? How does it look like? Which materials do you use and what's your process like?
Yeah, so the way I'd probably describe my art as just a wrap up of like the phrasing I guess I would use is expressive realism, because I don't really go for a photorealistic style. I don't think that that gives you a lot of like freedom as an artist to like have your own creativity in as you're doing your process and creating pieces. So I definitely go for very representative artwork. I paint a lot of animals and I do some portraiture and stuff like that. But I definitely am not what I would call a realism painter. I use a lot of like really high contrast, bold colors when I paint. I use a lot of like solid black backgrounds when I'm starting out, just because I feel like that can like highlight the subject really well. So I guess that's how I'd probably sum up my style. As far as materials go, I do a lot of work in spray paint. That's definitely like my favorite material across the board. Doing anything, whether it's just for fun or if it's a canvas painting, anything like that. I really love using spray paint a lot. I do full mixed media and oil. So I use a lot of spray paint, oil pens for like mark making and whatnot. And then I finish off all my paintings with oil paint just for details and to get that realistic look and add depth. And then you said process, right? Like walk through that.
Yeah.
Usually the way I'll start a painting is I usually will build a source beforehand. So whether I get inspired by something I saw or just an idea in my head, I'll kind of build a source from that and then work from there. So I mostly do work on canvas. So usually the way I'll start out is I'll sketch out my subject first, whether it's an animal, whatever. I don't really sketch out the entire piece totally planned, but I'll always kind of get where I want everything to land, whether I'm painting. Like if I would paint a tiger, I would draw that out, have that know where it's going to be once the painting is finished. And then I go in with acrylic washes or acrylic inks and kind of build up my colors and go on top of that with a lot of spray paint, like mark making, or kind of try to build up the scene of what the painting's going to be with that. Like with the spray paint work, I'll kind of do a lot of color fields or kind of get my base in for what the painting's going to be. And then after that, I'll usually go in with some oil pens or some acrylic just for some minor details, like filling in some color, sketching out my subject more. And then I'll go right in with oil paint and do some glazing and then move into opaques and finish the painting in oil.
Thank you very much for the description. How did you get your start in art?
So when I was younger, I did like a lot of smaller like art classes, just stuff like that through school. Growing up, I was always homeschooled and I still am. Right now I'll be graduating high school and I'll be in my senior year coming up after this summer. So I always did art like just as a school subject, and then I started getting more interested into it when I was probably in like junior high age, like 7th or 8th grade. I would just do a lot of art classes and anything that my mom could find for me to do. I did a lot of just homeschool art courses, like whether it was just one day things or maybe like a week-long workshop, anything like that. I would just go and just learn as much as I could. And then when I was in high school, I think it would have been 2 years ago in 2018, I attended Milan Art Institute, their high school mastery program for high school students. And then the September after I did that, I went right into their full mastery program, and from there have been working professionally with my art since then.
Beautiful. What artists are you influenced by, dead or alive?
One of my favorites for sure, as I mentioned earlier, I really love spray paint. Something I definitely try to do in my work a lot because I do consider myself a fine artist as far as painting on canvas goes and selling my work. I feel like when a lot of people think of spray paint, it's more thought of just like graffiti art or tag artists and stuff like that. which I don't think is a bad connotation at all. I think that work is like really awesome, obviously. But something I really try to do in my work is kind of showcase like spray paint in a more fine art style. So I definitely look up to a lot of spray paint artists. One, his name is Sketch. He does his work in all spray paint, like only uses that exclusively. But the work he creates is just really cool. Like he shows a lot of different effects and ways that you can put spray paint that I don't think a lot of people would think of, which I think is definitely really cool. Some of my other favorite artists, Ellie Milan, I obviously love her work a lot. I think I've had people tell me before that some of my work definitely you can see some of the influence from doing their mastery program in that, which I don't think is a bad thing. I definitely love the style that she has. The way that she can make glowing objects in her paintings, that's something that I've actually been trying to work on in some of my own work recently. So those are definitely two of the artists I follow the most for like kind of looking up to them and trying to emulate like what they're doing.
Yeah, I love Ellie's work too. It's really beautiful. What is the most challenging part of being an artist for you?
For me, I think just one thing, especially like I said, I am still a high school student. Just balancing the time management, making sure that I'm putting in enough hours, like in my studio, making work, like actually making sure I'm creating enough works of art to, have a steady body of work and grow that like aspect of myself as an artist, I think is one of the things that I probably struggle with the most. Other than that, I definitely think something that not a lot of people would think, but for me as an artist, like with social media, just because that's such a big platform right now, kind of creating content that I think is good and usable content to put out, like whether it's on my Instagram page or on TikTok, with that getting bigger and obviously being able to build a fan base quickly with that. I think that as an artist is probably something I struggle with sometimes, just trying to create content steadily and make sure that I'm putting stuff out like consistently.
And do you have any art tip for people who are just starting out in art, or something that you would tell your younger self?
I think as far as people starting out in art, just the most important thing is repetition. When I was starting out, obviously everybody starts somewhere, but portraits were not something I was able to do. So I just think sometimes artists get discouraged by that if you're just not naturally inclined to be able to do something. But I just think repetition, as far as working on your skill set, or if there's something specific that you really want to achieve in your work, that just repeating that thing and working at it constantly is probably something I would implore upon other artists. I think something like you're saying, if I could tell my younger self or artists when they're starting out, is just mistakes are going to be made and they're definitely not something you can completely avoid, but not to let them seem as so much of a setback. I think when I was younger, when I was just first starting artwork, selling it like seriously and really getting into it as a business, I would get very like fixated on my mistake. I think learning from your mistakes is obviously really important, but I don't think it should seem like such a big, large scale disaster if you do have a falling short somewhere. So
Thank you for the advice. What do you most value in life, and what do you want to say with your art?
I think probably what I want to say with my art the most, just because it's something that I struggled with a lot when I was younger. And I mean, obviously, right now I'm only 17, so I'm not necessarily super far in life yet, but definitely something when I was younger that I struggled with a lot was just self acceptance and kind of being content and happy with where I was at, whether it was in something that I could or couldn't do, or personality wise, anything like that. So, something in my work that I always try to do, which I think is why now I'm drawn to painting like wild animals, or I'll do a lot of like forces of nature type stuff like lightning or volcanoes or something like that, like very powerful things like that, is just trying to kind of show that aspect for people. So something I'd like for people to get when they see my work or take away from it when they see it is kind of a recognition of like the power that I think everybody has and the potential that every person has inside of them. I don't believe that anyone is put on the earth or anyone on earth isn't made or doesn't have something great to offer. So that's something that's really important to me in my work, to try to kind of resonate with people that view it, is that kind of feeling of self-worth.
Great. Do you sometimes experience creative blocks, and how do you overcome them?
Yeah, creative blocks, I think for sure are something that every artist experiences. I think the most important thing, or at least for me, whenever I go through a creative block, is I always will try to kind of look at what I've been doing in my process, maybe that seems like once I get to it, like I'm just dreading. Because obviously, if you're going to have that sort of thing that you're just wishing you didn't have to do when you're doing your artwork, it's not going to be helpful to you creating and being consistent in your artwork. So, something that's always helped me a lot is just whenever I hit a creative block, kind of going back, taking a step back a little bit and kind of looking at what I think I need to do more of in my art process, or kind of doing just some fun small projects that are just very free flowing and not having like a complete plan for them, but just letting myself kind of have some artistic freedom and just do some stuff more for fun, whether or not I would show it to anybody or whether it's going to be something that I try to sell later. Just I think it's important to at least every now and then make sure you have real, like uninhibited, just creative outlet for yourself. So I think that's something that's helped me with creative blocks in the past, is just kind of trying to do something that's very right brain oriented and free flowing as far as artwork goes.
So do you keep a sketchbook?
I do. That's actually something that I've just recently started, because it's something I respect in a lot of other artists when I see them with, sketchbook upon sketchbook of just like random drawings or doodles that they had, ideas for paintings that are more rough drafts, everything like that. So I've challenged myself for this year to fill up a sketchbook, from cover to cover, trying to just kind of put in something down, whether it's just a quick sketch or a color idea, anything like that. Kind of just fill at least a page a day, try to keep those creative juices flowing.
Yeah, that's a really great exercise. I do that too. So what's next for you in future? What are your plans for the next 5 years?
I would definitely like to travel. It's definitely been something I've been interested in ever since I was younger. And I actually, before some of the stuff that happened, obviously, in 2020 with COVID and travel restrictions, had a trip planned to go to Greece and possibly a trip planned to go to Australia, because I think that travel, you can definitely get a lot of inspiration for artwork from. So I think definitely moving forward, I'd like to do some, international trips or something along those lines. As far as my art goes, obviously I'd like to stay consistent, just creating my work and building that up. Eventually, something that I've had on my heart that I definitely want to try and accomplish probably within the next 5 years, if not shortly after, is I want to do probably a nonprofit organization, just because I know there's not a lot of those, especially just in Arizona, for children in foster care to pursue careers in art or use that as kind of a coping mechanism. Just because my family, I actually have some adopted siblings, so that's definitely something that's very close to me personally and just my family. So whether they're a teenager or a young child that kind of doesn't have that positive outlet or something to go to when times are hard or something like that, that's something that I definitely want to kind of get off the ground in the next couple of years for sure.
Wow, that's very inspiring. I wish you all the best for that project.
Thank you.
How can people find your art?
So right now I am in the process of building a website, so I'm hoping that'll be up soon. But as of right now, I'm on Instagram just under Isaac Castellanos Art, or on Facebook and TikTok as well. It's all just under Isaac Castellanos Art. So people can find me there. And then for people in Arizona, I'm also in a gallery up in Mesa called the Downtown Mesa Artists Emporium. They can see my art in person there.
Do you mind to maybe show us around your little gallery you have there?
So that right now is just what I have working on my easel. They're just some kind of miniature paintings that I've been working on. And then all of my work right now, I kind of just have it hung around my studio. I think it really helps with just inspiration and being able to see the body of work that I've built, kind of.
Beautiful. And thank you very much. I hope I see you on the Sunday Zoom call with the group.
No, yeah, for sure.
Have a nice day.
Thank you.